AITA for legally evicting my stepsister after my stepmother announced she'd be living with me without my permission? 28F, never thought I'd be posting here, but after what just happened at my father's birthday dinner last weekend, I need some outside perspective. My family is completely divided, and I've been called everything from heartless to finally standing up for yourself. So here goes. Background. I've worked in project management for a tech company for the past 6 years. I'm good at my job, really good. I specialize in turning chaotic situations into organized, executable plans with clear deliverables and timelines. I mention this because it becomes relevant to how I handled what I'm about to describe. 3 years ago, I purchased a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. It wasn't easy. I saved aggressively throughout my 20s, gave up vacations, drove a used Honda while my friends were financing new cars, and lived with roommates until I was 25. The down payment alone took me 4 years to accumulate. I made sacrifices that my stepsister Melanie, 24F, has never had to make because she's never been expected to make them. The second bedroom in my apartment serves as my home office, which I use constantly for remote work. My company went hybrid 2 years ago, so I work from home 3 days a week. That office contains my desk, my monitors, my ergonomic chair, my filing cabinet, and everything I need to do my job effectively. It's not a guest room. It's never been a guest room. My father remarried when I was 14 to my stepmother, Diane, 47F. Diane isn't evil, she's just always prioritized Melanie in ways that my father enabled rather than challenged. Every conversation seemed to circle back to Melanie's needs, Melanie's feelings, Melanie's opportunities. My accomplishments were acknowledged with polite nods, Melanie's were celebrated with dinner parties. Melanie graduated college 2 years ago with a degree in communications, has bounced between 3 jobs since then, none lasting more than 8 months, and most recently was living with her boyfriend Josh of 8 months in a nearby city. She contributes nothing to household expenses when she stays with her mother or my father, doesn't save money, and spends liberally on clothes, concerts, weekend trips, and what she calls experiences. She posts about these experiences constantly on Instagram, always with captions about living her best life. I've always maintained polite but distant relationships with both of them. We exchange birthday texts. We see each other at holidays. We're not close, but we're civil. Or at least we were. The Christmas dinner announcement. This past Christmas, our blended family gathered at my father's house. The day was going fine, normal family awkwardness, Diane's mediocre cooking, my father trying too hard to make everything seem perfect. Then, during dessert, Diane clinked her glass like she was about to give a toast at a wedding. "So everyone, wonderful news," she announced, beaming. "Melanie and Josh have decided to part ways, which is sad, but she's ready for a fresh start. She's going to be moving to my city after New Year's to pursue some opportunities there. And the best part is, she'll be staying with my name for a few weeks while she apartment hunts. Isn't that perfect? 2 sisters finally getting to bond." I felt my fork freeze halfway to my mouth. Everyone was looking at me, smiling, waiting for my enthusiastic response. My father had this hopeful look on his face, the one he always gets when he wants me to just go along with whatever Diane wants to keep the peace. My aunt was nodding approvingly. Even my cousin seemed pleased. I set my fork down carefully, keeping my voice level. "I'm sorry, when was this discussed with me?" Diane's smile flickered, just for a moment. "Oh, honey, I just assumed. I mean, you have that extra room, and it's only for a few weeks." She's family. That extra room is my home office. I work from home 3 days a week. My entire professional setup is in that room. And nobody asked me. The table went silent. Melanie, who had been scrolling on her phone through most of dinner, finally looked up and said, "It's just temporary." "God, you don't have to make it weird. It's not like you're using that room at night anyway." My father jumped in with his usual peacekeeping tone. "Sweetheart, let's talk about this later. It's Christmas. Let's not ruin the mood." I let it drop because I didn't want to ruin Christmas, but I pulled Diane aside before I left and told her clearly, "I need to think about this. You can't just announce something like that without asking me first. It's my apartment. I own it." Diane patted my arm like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You'll see, it'll be fine. Sisters should support each other. This will be good for both of you. I'll have Melanie text you the details." I drove home that night with a pit in my stomach. I already knew how this was going to go. January 2nd, the arrival. Between Christmas and New Year's, I received exactly 1 text from Melanie. "Hey, I'll be there January 2nd around noon. See you then." Smiling face with smiling eyes. I responded asking how long she planned to stay, what her apartment hunting timeline looked like, whether she had any leads on places, and whether she could contribute to utilities while she was there. She left me on read. On January 2nd, I was working from my home office, my actual job, with actual deadlines, when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it to find Melanie standing there with a rolling suitcase, a tote bag overflowing with makeup products, and a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Surprise! I'm a little early. Behind her, in the hallway, were two men I didn't recognize. They were wearing matching company shirts from a moving service. Behind them, propped against the wall, was a fully assembled queen-sized bed frame. Next to that was a mattress wrapped in plastic. And behind that was a dresser, a nightstand, and what appeared to be a significant portion of an entire bedroom set. "What is all this?" I asked, stepping back. "My furniture." Josh let me keep the bedroom stuff since he was buying all new stuff for the apartment anyway. He was being generous for once. "The movers are just going to set it up in the spare room. It won't take long, I promise. Melanie, that room is my office. My desk is in there. My monitors, my chair, my entire work setup. Oh, we can move that stuff to the living room. It's not a big deal. Your apartment is huge compared to Josh's place. There's plenty of room." Before I could formulate a response, she had brushed past me and was directing the movers inside, pointing at my office door like she owned the place. I stood there in shock, mouth open, as two strangers walked into my home and began disassembling my work setup. Within 2 hours, my organized workspace was scattered across my living room floor. My monitors sat on my coffee table. My ergonomic chair was wedged between my couch and the wall. My filing cabinet blocked the path to my kitchen. And Melanie was unpacking clothes into what she now called her room, humming along to music playing from her phone. That night, after Melanie had gone out with some friends she'd apparently already made in my city, I called my father. I explained what happened, how I felt bulldozed, how bringing a full bedroom set was not a few weeks' behavior. He sighed heavily, his signature move. "Just give it a few weeks, sweetheart. She's going through a hard time with the breakup. You know how Diane gets when Melanie's upset. Please, just keep the peace for now. For me." I hung up and stared at my work laptop balanced precariously on my coffee table, surrounded by the wreckage of my organized life. Fine. A few weeks. I could survive a few weeks. Update 1. January 15th. The few weeks extend indefinitely. By mid-January, I'd noticed a pattern. Melanie wasn't apartment hunting. She wasn't job hunting either. She woke up around noon most days, spent hours scrolling TikTok on my couch while I tried to work from my makeshift living room desk, occasionally networked by going to coffee shops to post selfies, and went out with new friends she'd made multiple nights a week. She came home after midnight regularly, making no effort to be quiet. I tried having a calm conversation with her on January 12th. "Hey, just checking in on your apartment hunt. Have you found any good options? Do you need help setting up Zillow alerts or something?" Melanie barely looked up from her phone. "The market here is crazy. Like, nothing's affordable unless you want to live in a basement with roommates. I'm not doing that. I might need to wait until spring when more places open up." "Spring? Melanie, you said a few weeks. It's been 2 weeks already, and you haven't even looked at a single listing." I said temporary. Temporary can mean different things. And honestly, I've been going through a lot emotionally. The breakup really affected me more than I thought it would. I need time to heal before I can make big decisions about where to live. She finally looked at me with an expression that was probably meant to seem vulnerable but came across as rehearsed. "Besides, this is nice, right? We're finally bonding like Mom always wanted." We had not bonded. Not even close. She left dishes piled in the sink for days until I washed them. She used my expensive shampoo and conditioner without asking, products I ordered specially because of my hair type. She left wet towels on the bathroom floor. She had friends over without notice, and they ate my groceries. She blasted reality TV until past midnight on weeknights when I had 8 a.m. meetings. She never once offered to pay for anything. I called Diane on January 15th, keeping my voice as measured as I could manage. "She needs to have a move-out timeline. This isn't working. I can't do my job properly with my office dismantled, and she's showing no signs of actually looking for a place." Diane's tone shifted immediately from pleasant to cold. "Are you serious right now? She just got out of a relationship. She's struggling. Can't you be supportive for once in your life? Everything isn't always about you and your precious little job." She brought a full bedroom set. She's decorated the walls. She's not even pretending to look for apartments. She needs time to get on her feet. You have the space. Stop being so selfish. Your father is very disappointed in how you're handling this. I was selfish. That's what I was. The person who worked 60 hours a week, who saved for years, who sacrificed constantly, who purchased her own home with no help from anyone. I was selfish for not wanting an uninvited permanent houseguest who contributed nothing. That night, I did what I always do when I'm overwhelmed at work. I created a project plan. I documented everything. Move-in date. Verbal agreements. Lack of rent contribution. Timeline of events. Communication attempts. I started researching tenant rights in my state. What I found made my stomach drop. Update 2, February 1st. She's not leaving, and she knows it. On February 1st, I sat down with Melanie for what I called a house meeting. I'd prepared talking points. I had notes. I was professional and calm, just like I would be with a difficult stakeholder at work. Melanie, I need you to give me a firm move-out date. You've been here exactly 1 month today. I need my office back, my privacy back, and this arrangement isn't sustainable for either of us. She looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen before, amused, almost smug. I can't just leave. I don't have anywhere to go. And honestly, I've been doing some reading online, and you can't actually kick me out. I've been here over 30 days. I have tenant rights now. I felt the blood drain from my face. She'd researched this. She knew exactly what she was doing. You did what? I'm not stupid. Mom told me you'd probably try something like this eventually, that you'd get cold and difficult about it. So yeah, I looked it up. You have to formally evict me now, and that takes like 3 months. So maybe just chill out and accept that we're roommates for the foreseeable future. It'll be easier for both of us. I kept my composure, but barely. You're not a tenant. You don't pay rent. You were never formally invited to live here. Doesn't matter. I receive mail here now. I changed my address last week. I've established residency. Look it up yourself if you don't believe me. She shrugged and went back to her phone. Mom says you just need to learn to share. You've always been so possessive about everything. She walked back to her room, my office, my space that I'd worked years to afford, and shut the door. I did look it up. She was right. In my state, after 30 days of occupancy, a person gains tenant rights regardless of whether there's a formal lease or rent payment. The law is designed to protect vulnerable people from sudden homelessness, but Melanie was using it as a weapon. To remove her legally, I would need to go through official eviction proceedings. 30-day notice. Court filing. Hearing. Enforcement. I called a lawyer the next morning. Update 3, February 14th. The legal process begins. My attorney, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia who specialized in landlord-tenant disputes, explained the situation clearly during our first consultation. She's what we call a holdover occupant. Not a tenant in the traditional sense because there's no lease and no rent, but she has established residency. The law treats her similarly to a month-to-month tenant. You'll need to serve her with a formal notice to quit, in this state, that's 30 days for month-to-month situations or occupants without a lease. If she doesn't leave voluntarily after those 30 days, you file for eviction, and then we go to court. How long does the court process take? Depends on the docket. Could be 30 days from filing, could be 60. Courts are backed up. Then if you win, and you will win, this is straightforward, she has additional days to vacate before the sheriff can enforce the order. So we're looking at what, 2 to 3 months minimum from today? Possibly longer. But you will prevail. You own the property, she has no lease, she pays no rent, and you have documentation showing she was only supposed to stay temporarily. This is about as clean a case as I see. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, ironically, a process server delivered the formal 30-day notice to quit to Melanie at my apartment. I was at work, so I wasn't there to see her reaction, but I received 17 texts and 4 missed calls within an hour. Her texts ranged from, "Are you serious right now?" to, "You're going to regret this," to, "Mom is going to be so upset," to, "You're ruining everything because you can't share." I didn't respond to any of them. I'd learned from Patricia, document everything, but don't engage emotionally. Every response could potentially be used against me. Diane called that evening, and I let it go to voicemail. Her message was a masterpiece of guilt-tripping that I've since listened to multiple times just to remind myself what I'm dealing with. I cannot believe you're doing this to your own sister. She has nowhere to go. Your father is absolutely devastated. You're tearing this family apart over a spare room. A room you don't even use at night. I hope you can live with yourself. Call me back immediately. My father called next. His message was shorter, more tired. He sounded exhausted. "Please call me back, sweetheart. Let's talk about this. I'm sure we can work something out. There has to be a compromise here." I did call him back, once. I explained calmly that Melanie had been given multiple opportunities to provide a move-out timeline. I explained that instead of cooperating, she had deliberately established residency to prevent me from setting boundaries in my own home. I explained that I had a legal right to my own property and that I was exercising it. He listened without interrupting and then said, "I understand where you're coming from, but can't you just give her more time?" "For me. For the family." "Dad, she had time. She chose to use that time to trap me. I'm done trying to compromise with someone who manipulated me from day one." We haven't spoken much since. Update 4. March 1st, the eviction filing. The 30-day notice expired on March 16th, but Melanie showed absolutely no signs of leaving. In fact, she dug in deeper. She bought a small bookshelf and filled it with her collection of self-help books about manifesting. She hung pictures on the wall, framed photos of herself, mostly. She bought plants and placed them on the windowsill. She told anyone who would listen that I was psychotic and obsessed with control for trying to evict my own sister. She also stopped even pretending to be civil. She ate my food openly, left messes deliberately, and played music loudly when she knew I was on work calls. She was trying to make my life miserable enough that I dropped the eviction. On March 1st, I returned home from a particularly draining day at work to find Diane sitting in my living room. Melanie had apparently given her a key, one of my spare keys that I'd foolishly left in a kitchen drawer months ago. "We need to talk," Diane said, not getting up from my couch. "You're in my home without my permission. You used a key that was stolen from me." "I'm family. Don't be so dramatic. Sit down." I set my bag down but remained standing. "What do you want, Diane?" "I want you to stop this ridiculous eviction process. Drop the case. Let Melanie stay until she gets on her feet properly. That's what a real family does. They support each other unconditionally. Family also asks permission before moving someone into your home. Family doesn't establish residency deliberately to prevent you from having boundaries. Family doesn't steal your keys and show up uninvited to lecture you in your own living room." Diane's expression hardened into something ugly. "Your father would be so disappointed if he could see who you've become." "My father enabled this. He knew what you were planning at Christmas, and he said nothing. He asked me to keep the peace instead of defending me. He's been enabling your behavior and Melanie's behavior for 14 years. He doesn't get to be disappointed. You've always been difficult. Always so cold. No wonder you're alone. No wonder you don't have any real relationships. You can't even share with your own sister." I walked to my front door and opened it wide. "Get out. And tell Melanie that if anything of mine goes missing or gets damaged, I'll add it to the court filing." Diane left, but not before telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life, and that I would regret this when nobody shows up to my funeral. On March 17th, the day after the notice expired with Melanie still firmly in residence, I filed for formal eviction. The court date was set for April 22nd. Update 5. April 22nd, Court Day. The eviction hearing was almost anticlimactic after months of drama. Melanie showed up with Diane as her support. They didn't have a lawyer. Apparently, Diane was convinced they could argue their case successfully based on family values and my alleged cruelty. They were dressed nicely, and Melanie had clearly prepared some kind of emotional speech. Patricia presented our case efficiently and professionally. I owned the property. I had the deed and mortgage in my name. Melanie was invited as a temporary guest for a few weeks after her breakup. She established residency without my permission, refused to leave, and had been served proper legal notice. We had documentation of everything, every text, every timeline, every attempt at resolution. When the judge asked Melanie if she had a defense, she launched into a tearful speech about how I was her sister, how she'd been going through the hardest time of her life, and how family should stick together through thick and thin. She talked about how our parents' marriage was supposed to unite us. She talked about sisterhood and unconditional love. The judge listened patiently, I'll give her credit for that, and then asked a single question: "Did you have the property owner's explicit permission to reside there permanently?" Melanie hesitated. "Well, not permanently exactly, but did you pay rent at any point?" "No, but we're family, so." "Were you given proper legal notice to vacate?" "Yes, but it's not fair." The judge ruled in my favor in under 10 minutes. Melanie was given 7 days to vacate. If she didn't comply, the sheriff would enforce the order and physically remove her and her belongings. Outside the courthouse, Diane approached me with barely contained fury. Her face was red, her hands were shaking. "You'll never be welcome in our home again. I hope you know that. You've destroyed this family forever." I looked at her evenly. "No. You destroyed it when you announced, without my permission, that your daughter was moving into my home. You destroyed it when you taught her that she was entitled to other people's spaces, money, and time without earning any of it. And you destroyed it when you called me selfish for having boundaries. This is the natural consequence of your choices." I walked to my car without looking back. The aftermath. Melanie moved out on April 28th, one day before the sheriff was scheduled to enforce the order. She left scratches on my hardwood floors from dragging her furniture, and she accidentally took some of my kitchenware. But she was gone. She went back to my father and Diane's house, which is where she probably should have gone in the first place instead of invading my home. My father has called twice since then. The first time, he asked if we could put this behind us and move forward as a family. I told him I needed time and space to process everything that happened. The second time, he asked if I'd come to his birthday dinner last weekend. I went. Probably shouldn't have, but he's still my dad despite everything. The dinner was tense. Diane barely acknowledged me beyond a curt hello. Melanie glared at me from across the table and made passive-aggressive comments throughout the meal. My father tried desperately to keep conversation going, asking everyone about work and whether like we weren't sitting in the aftermath of a family war. At one point, Melanie muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Must be nice to be so cold and heartless that you can throw family out on the street without feeling anything." I set my fork down and looked at her directly. "Must be nice to have so little self-awareness that you still think you're the victim after deliberately trapping someone in their own home." Diane slammed her napkin on the table. "That's enough. You've already done enough damage. Can't you just let it go and move on?" I stood up, placed my napkin on my plate, walked over to my father, wished him a genuine happy birthday, and left. Since then, I've received texts from various extended family members, most of whom only heard Diane's heavily edited version of events, calling me harsh, cold, unforgiving, and not the person they thought I was. A few others, including my aunt on my mother's side and a cousin who's dealt with her own toxic family dynamics, reached out to say they were proud of me for finally standing up for myself. So, Reddit, AITA, for legally evicting my stepsister after my stepmother announced, without my permission, that she would be living with me? For refusing to let the timeline extend indefinitely? For prioritizing my boundaries and my mental health over family peace? For standing up at my father's birthday dinner when Melanie took yet another shot at me? I keep going back and forth. Part of me wonders if I should have just tolerated it longer, tried harder to find a compromise, been more patient. But another part of me, the project manager part that saved my sanity through countless chaotic situations, knows that when someone deliberately removes your ability to set boundaries, the only option is to enforce them through systems they can't manipulate. So tell me, am I the asshole? Edit. Answering common questions. 1. Yes, I changed my locks immediately after the eviction was enforced. New locks, new deadbolt, Ring camera installed at the door. 2. No, Melanie never paid a single dollar toward rent, utilities, groceries, or anything else. She did, however, eat my expensive aged Gouda without asking. I'm still bitter about the cheese. 3. For those asking about the project plan, yes, I literally treated this like a work project with timelines, milestones, stakeholders, risk assessments, and status updates. My therapist says it's a coping mechanism. I call it effective. 4. Several people asked if my dad ever explicitly apologized or acknowledged that what happened was wrong. No. He's called it unfortunate and a misunderstanding, but he has never once said, Diane and Melanie were wrong to do this to you. I'm working on accepting that he probably never will. 5. For those saying I should have handled this differently for my dad's sake, I love my father, but he made his choices. He married Diane. He enabled her behavior for over a decade. He chose to ask me to keep the peace rather than defending me. At some point, I had to stop setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Thanks for all the support. It genuinely helps to know I'm not crazy. Top comments. U/Boundaries Matter 2024, NTA. They announced she was moving in without asking, she showed up with furniture, she researched tenant rights specifically to trap you, and somehow you're the villain? The audacity is absolutely staggering. Your project manager approach is honestly inspiring. U/LegalLurker_42, attorney here. NTA. You handled this exactly by the book. Documented everything, got proper legal counsel, followed the process precisely. People who establish residency deliberately to exploit tenant protections are the worst kind of manipulators. Your stepsister knew exactly what she was doing from day one. You/stepfamily survivor, NTA. I went through something eerily similar with my stepbrother. The family should support family argument is always wielded by people who only take and never give. You did absolutely nothing wrong. You/cheese griever, info, what kind of aged cheese was it? Because honestly that might change my vote. JK, obviously NTA, but I genuinely need to know about this cheese. Reply from OP, it was a 2-year aged Gouda I bought specifically for a dinner party I was hosting. She ate the entire wheel over 2 days. When I asked her about it, she said, it was in the fridge, so I figured it was communal. Communal. In my apartment that she didn't pay for. You/cheese griever, that's a war crime. I'm so sorry for your loss. Final update. Thank you everyone for the overwhelming support. Reading through all your comments has been cathartic and validating in ways I didn't know I needed. For those asking, yes, I'm in therapy. I started going about halfway through this ordeal when I realized I was having anxiety attacks before coming home to my own apartment, the place that was supposed to be my sanctuary. My therapist has been incredible in helping me understand that what happened wasn't a failure of my hospitality. It was a deliberate exploitation of my kindness and my boundaries by people who had always seen my resources as communal property. I've also started rebuilding my home office. New desk, new shelving, new organizational systems, new everything. I'm reclaiming that space entirely and making it better than it was before. It feels good. As for my relationship with my dad, that's an ongoing process. I'm not cutting him off entirely, but I'm maintaining significant distance. He needs to understand that choosing peace over justice every single time has real consequences. Maybe he'll get there eventually. Maybe he won't. But I refuse to be the sacrificial lamb for family harmony anymore. To everyone who's dealt with similar situations, boundaries aren't selfish. Protecting your space, your time, and your mental health isn't cruel. And sometimes, the only way to teach people that you're serious about your limits is to enforce them through legal channels when they refuse to respect your words. Project complete. Final status. Successful. Lessons learned. Many. Personal growth. Significant. NTA. Thanks, Reddit.